Hey guys, have you ever wanted to go on a road trip and take your dogs? Well, my name is Johnna Devereaux. I'm here with Bow Wow Labs, and today we are interviewing Amy Burkert from Go Pet Friendly. She is an award-winning pet travel blogger guru. They have over 65,000 pet-friendly locations on their website, including a trip planner that allows you to map out your route and to see all of the dog-friendly areas on your route. She and her husband Rob have like the best life. They live in a Winnebago with their dog Miles, and they travel everywhere together. And I'm just so jealous of that. Amy, thank you for coming. Thank you for joining and agreeing to speak with us today.
My pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
So, for all of the people that are looking to plan a road trip with their pet, what are some of the things that they should be thinking about before they even embark on the journey, or take the time out of work? What are some things that we should think about?
Well, the first thing really to start to consider is, does your pet want to go? So 95% of pets are pretty interested in going on a road trip, but there are a small percentage who really they love their routine. They would rather stay at home, right, in a familiar environment. So that's the very first thing to think about is your pet one that will be excited to go on a road trip or want to go on a road trip? For me, that's not a question. Miles is happiest wherever we are. So when we decide that we're going to travel, taking him along is like, that's a no-brainer because he always wants to go. So if you have a pet like that you're fairly confident wants to go, then you can just probably make your plans and you'll be all right. If you're kind of in the middle, like, boy, I don't know, does my pet really want to go or not? Then I recommend that you do a couple of little practice trips. So you might take a short trip, even if it's a day trip, go someplace nearby, just so you have some time in the car to kind of get a feel for whether your pet likes being in the car or not. The other thing I think is really handy is if you're planning to go camping, try it in your backyard first. Like, just give it a shot. Make sure that everything kind of work. You kind of can work the bugs out there, where it's easy to bail and go back to bed if things are going haywire. Um, and then try it again in a couple of days and
Yeah.
work out the issues kind of on familiar territory.
I think that is such, well, there are two great recommendations, right? So first of all, my first takeaway is, if your dog doesn't like going into the car because they associate with the vet or associate with something bad, taking a cross country trip with your dog right straight out the gate may not be the best thing, right? Because you
Right.
want it to be enjoyable for everyone. So baby steps is great if you have a dog. I mean, I have two dogs that love the car as well. The second I pick up my keys, they're like, where are we going? Whether they're coming or
Yes.
not. And the thing about camping, it's funny. My husband and I tried to go camping and we brought our dogs and they were fine, but there are things that you don't think about, right? The external noise that is not that they may not be used to. The campground next door, is that going to incite barking? They may have another dog. So if you have a dog that is dog reactive, or if they're dog aggressive, and sometimes you could have the perfect sweet dog, but when they're on leash as they need to be at a campground, sometimes they show different behaviors. So those are really good things to think about. And I say, first and foremost, you hear things when you're camping. It's one of the great things about camping. You're trying to be in nature. Are they going to bark if they hear an owl, right? If they hear things going out around the tent, are they going to respond differently? Are they going to try to break through the tent? All good things to learn at home.
At home in your
First.
backyard with a fence. Yes.
Yes, preferably with a fence.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and there are going to be a lot of other dogs in the campground. There are going to be squirrels and chipmunks and potentially lizards, and so all kinds of things that they might not be used to, that you might have a little bit more encounter with in your backyard. So even just getting, like you said, used to noises at night, even somebody walking by your campsite, on their way to the restroom or something like that. Those are kinds of things that it takes a little bit for dogs to get used to that. And so one of the things that I have taught Miles, because we found him as a pup, so we've kind of been really working with him on trying to think through some of the things that he's going to really need to know as a traveling dog. One of the things that I've taught him is hush. So I taught him tell me, which is please bark,
Right.
right? Tell
Okay.
me. When I say tell me, I mean bark your head off, bark your crazy head off, and I'll bark too, and we'll have a great time barking together. Tell me, you know, and he tells me all about, you know, whatever he's thinking about. But then I say hush and give him a hand signal as well. And what that means, okay, now it's time to be quiet. So in a campground, for example, when we're in our RV and we've got dogs walking by all the time, a lot of dogs bark at other dogs when they see them, like through the windshield of the RV or something like that. And we've been working really hard on hush, so that he doesn't do that. So that's one of the little things that you can start working with early, you know, way before you're going to start heading out on your road trip, is to start to think through some of the little training tips, little training techniques that you could use to put your dog in a position to be successful in a place where he's going to be in a different environment.
Yeah, those, you know, I think that's so amazing because I also say to my dog, tell me, which is so funny because I didn't know anyone else used those two terms. But I just said enough, right? Which was like this. So hush, enough, whatever it might be. And
Yeah,
so one of the ways that I know I taught him that, which it does, you know, it is kind of a trick, but it's also a staple standard thing that you should have in your repertoire of training, is that as soon as they are quiet, you reward that, whether it be with the food or if you do it with a toy. And so you want to start making that association. It just doesn't happen overnight. So for those people that are watching this and like, oh my God, my dog walks all the time, if I say a word, is it magically going to stop? It doesn't work like that.
no,
It does take time and practice and associating things. So just kind of think about that. And in the RV world, you know, I have heard, and you can tell me if this is true because this is the life you live. I've heard that if you have dogs that are barking incessantly, that they will actually ask you to leave. So that is a big problem, right? So if you have a dog that is a talker, right? That's something you want to be aware of before you book your site or before you, you know, start going down that road. If you do
absolutely.
happen to have a dog that's a barker and he loves rides and you want to do their cross country trip, are there other options as to where they can stay, or is there like a different part of the RV park that they will allow like the bad folk to like what are your other options?
Well, so there are a couple of things. So first of all, you know, if you understand why your dog barks, if he just barks just to hear his own voice, that's going to be a bigger challenge, right? But if there are triggers that you can identify, so for us, I know when we had our German Shepherd Buster, he would bark anytime he saw dogs walking by. RVs have built-in blinds, night shade blinds. So you can lower the blinds on your RV so that the dog can't see out. Now it's not as pleasant for you because it's a little like living in a cave. It's already a small area, you know, but if it's an issue with, you know, are you going to be asked to leave an RV park or a campground if your dog isn't quiet, you know, then it's worthwhile. The other thing I would say is the biggest problem I think with barking happens when people leave their pets alone in the campground, in their RV or in their camper. Usually they're not allowed to be left alone in a tent because they could obviously maybe chew their way out. And so usually campgrounds don't allow pets to be left alone in a tent, but sometimes people do leave them in their RVs. And that's usually when the barking happens, right? The
As like an
dog is
anxiety issue, kind of. Yeah.
anxiety attack, or, you know, especially like if they're not used to camping a lot. So Ty and Buster, the dogs that we had before Miles, lived in the RV for 10 years. It was the only place they lived. This was home to them. So for us, leaving them in the RV was really no different than you leaving your dog in a house.
Right.
They knew we were coming back. This was our home base. You know, with Miles, it's been a little bit different because he doesn't know what it is to live in a house. And you know, he may never know what it is to live in a house. We go to somebody's house and he's like, whoa, this is crazy, look at all the space you've got. But yeah, so I think when you're camping, it's important to know that you need to still think about including your dog in whatever activities you're doing, right? Rather than taking them along to the campground and then just leaving them sit in the camper all day. That's really not going to be any fun for them, and they're going to maybe get loud about that. And so then you're not going to have as much fun either.
And I think the difference with you is that you are living in an RV full time. For those that are recreationally, RVing, the dog does have the comparison, unlike Miles. They do know what home is like. They do know what it is to have more space, and to be able to maybe go outside into a fenced yard. And so they're now, it's almost, I would imagine, you would use the same type of techniques as you would to introduce a crate inside your home. Like you really want to get
Yes.
them comfortable and happy in an RV, and the same thing with the tent. So what are some things that people can do if they're first introducing? So let's just say, mom and dad or grandma and grandpa just decided they were going to retire, and they want to get the RV, or they just want to have something that they can go once a month or whatnot. How would you introduce your dog? How could to best set them up for success, to be comfortable and happy in that space?
Right. Yeah. Excellent question. And especially because we're seeing a lot more people camping and RVing right now. I think the situation has really moved people in that direction, and so we're seeing a lot of that. And so I think people are going to be really experiencing that. My recommendation is set the RV up or the camper up in your driveway, and for I don't know, a week or 2 weeks before you're going to leave, and start spending time there with your dog, right? Maybe start feeding him his meals in there, right? You want something really positive, or go out, hide some treats in
Yeah, do nose
places
work.
where,
Yeah.
right, and start doing some nose work in there. Now, don't put treats in places where you don't want your dog. So if you don't want your dog on the bed, don't put treats on the bed, right? Hide the treats on the, lower down on the floor, kind of. If you don't want him on the sofa, don't put treats on the sofa, right? But make it fun, right? Make being in the camper a fun experience. One of the things that we've done with Miles, because we were raising a puppy in an RV, which was like not something I recommend.
Difficult.
Yeah,
I would imagine.
not the most desirable situation. But one of the things that we did is I got like stuffable toys. And I feed him a brand of dog food called the Honest Kitchen. So it's a dehydrated dog food, and when you mix it up, it's like the consistency of oatmeal.
Mm-hmm.
So I stuff 3 of those toys every night, put them in the freezer, and that's what Miles eats the next day. Frozen food in his stuffed toy, because it takes him a while to get it out of there. He uses up energy working on it,
Yeah, the
keeps him
mental
busy for a
stimulation.
little
Yep.
bit. Yeah, he's not chewing on something else while he's working on that, which is excellent. So yeah, but it gives him something to do that makes him happy in a place, so if people wanted to do something like that, take the frozen toy, take it out to the camper.
Well, brand plug here. You could take your Bow Wow Labs Bully Buddy with the Safe It
That's
Bully
right.
Stick, and you could go out into the camper, and while you're on the bed or reading or something, you can allow your dog to have this long-term chew for the same thing, the mental stimulation.
Yes.
Just having that positive association with something yummy, and the RV as well.
Yeah. And just to take it slow too, right? Because some dogs are afraid of the stairs, the RV stairs.
Yeah.
They're open behind, they're a little narrow. So just be patient. Let your dog move at his own pace. And if you have a setback, it's okay. Don't worry about it. If he starts to freak out at the steps, just slow down a little bit, use more treats, use more, I don't know, cook up
Yeah,
some
don't
bacon,
pull them up.
whatever you got to
Don't pull
do.
them. Don't make a negative
No, yeah,
association.
don't
Yeah.
pick them up and put them in either. You've got to let them do it at their own pace, so that because you don't want to have to pick them up and put them in every time, right?
Yeah.
So
Would
don't.
you recommend maybe a ramp that you could use?
We used a ramp for a long time with Buster, especially because his hips were bad, and
Yeah.
so yeah, for the last couple of years of his life, we used a dog ramp. And I did a whole blog post on the blog about why we chose the one that we chose, and then how we taught Buster to use it. One of the
Awesome.
things that we did with the ramp was we put a doormat at the end of it. And because he wanted to jump off the sides. Right. So as he was coming down the ramp, he wanted to jump off. So we taught him that if his paws didn't hit the doormat at the end of the ramp, he didn't get his treat.
That's brilliant. Yeah, that's
So
actually
he
really
had
smart.
to come yeah, but my concern was that he was going to hurt his hips
Right,
more,
hurt himself
right?
when he jumped.
Jumping off
Absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely.
jumping off the ramp. Here I am trying to help him, and he's going to end up hurting himself worse. So that was a way that we kind of helped him figure out, okay, I've got to go all the way to the end to get my treat. And
And,
that worked out really well for him.
and I think that's a great tip because, he was a senior dog, but maybe something to think about if you have RVs. If you're going to be RVing, which rightfully so, if you buy one, you're invested, right? And you're going to love it
Yeah.
and you're going to enjoy it and you're going to love it if your dog loves it. Think forward, right? Project out that if your dog is a 3-year-old dog or a 6-month-old puppy, at some point, hopefully they're going to be a 10, 12, 13, or 16-year-old dog that's going to have different needs and might as well, when they're still young and agile, get out the ramp. Just start introducing it to them now because you will benefit from it on the other side when they are older and you're not trying to retrain them, even though I'm a full advocate that old dogs can learn new tricks. Why do it
For
if not necessary, right?
Right. They just learn so much easier, I think, when
Yeah.
they're younger. It takes longer when they're a little older. It took us probably about 3 weeks to get Buster using the ramp when we first bought it, and we had to lay it flat on the ground first and just get him used to the texture of it, right? Like before we even put any incline to it. Then that was a whole nother level of training to get him to do the incline. So with Miles would blow right up it now. Like we don't have a ramp right now, but Miles would charge right up the ramp now. Like he
Yeah.
wouldn't even think about it
Well,
because
but
he's
so
still a puppy and he's experiencing so many new things
right.
that one more new thing is not a big deal.
But I think beyond learning, because I say that in jest almost, physically, senior dogs are in a different place.
For
So it's
sure.
almost like humans when they get older. You're a little bit more cautious about your footing because you ache and there's pains in different ways. So I think it's more about hesitation sometimes that they don't want to hurt themselves because they have that body awareness instinctually. So again, just food for thought. I know I'm going to try RVing. I'm going to rent one. And I'm totally going to try to do the ramp thing because I'm really excited about this whole idea of being with my dogs as much as possible all the time because who else better to spend your time with?
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's say someone wants to go, I don't know, down the East Coast. Do you recommend, like, is there a place that they can go? Is gopetfriendly.com the place that they go to find out, let's just say they have a vehicle. Take RVs out there, they have like a minivan or they have a car that has a back seat and blah, blah, blah. Where should they stay? Do all hotels allow dogs these days? Are there certain states that they need to be aware of if they have a certain type of breed of dog? Like where can they, what advice do you give to them?
So on the website, we've got 65,000 listings for hotels, campgrounds, beaches, wineries, dog parks, restaurants, pet supply stores, doggy daycare, like anything that we could think that people would need when they were traveling with their pets. We put that on the website in a database. So it's easily searchable by location. You can find out all of the hotels. We've got their pet policies on there. Campgrounds as well, because campgrounds you also run into pet fees, some breed restrictions, a limit
Size
on the number of
restrictions?
pets that they allow, size restrictions,
Yeah.
absolutely. So we have the pet policies on the website, so it makes it a little bit easier, one less step, right? So people don't have to go searching each individual website to find out the pet policy. That's all right there. And then in addition to that, we have the blog. So on the blog is where we share all kinds of information about traveling with pets, like how do you take your pets across the border to Canada, right? What's required? What do you need to have with you? What should you expect? Those kinds of things. But also we have articles on different challenges that you might face, right? So you had mentioned, different laws in different states. We have
Yeah.
one blog post that talks about state laws that require pets to be buckled up in your vehicle.
Oh,
It's
wow.
illegal to not
Okay.
have them buckled up, right? So we have an article about that. We have an article about the laws in each state regarding leaving your pet alone in a vehicle. So if
Right.
you were traveling alone and you needed to use a restroom, what's the law in the state where you are going to say about that? There's an article on the blog about traveling with breeds that suffer discrimination. So
So
there
I
are
have two
places.
pitties. everyone knows, I think,
Yeah.
that follows me, that I have 2 pitties, so I'm very sensitive to that because unfortunately they are still discriminated against, I think unfairly, but that's a debate for a different day.
Yep.
But yeah.
Agreed. Agreed. So we talk about that. So what do you, when you're traveling with pits, what do you have to think about? What do you do? How, where, what resources are there out there that help make it clear about where you're going to be okay and where you should avoid, right? Those kinds of things.
Because there are some breeds in some towns, municipalities, that if you so much as drive through, if a police officer pulls you over, they can take your animal for
Yes,
no reason
for
besides that you
no
were
reason.
driving through the town. So it's nothing to take lackadaisically. It's really important stuff.
No, it's serious. It's serious stuff. And you'll find too, as you get your RV and you start making plans, a lot of private RV parks have breed restrictions. So
Yeah.
private parks and campgrounds have breed restrictions. So one of the
And
things
just
that I recommend,
And
oh,
just as
go
an
ahead.
aside, this isn't just for people that are doing RVs. This is even if they're driving in your own personal automobile, because as far as I'm concerned, that's a road trip too. So if you're in your
Yeah,
own
for
car,
sure.
these are still things that apply to you, not just for RVers.
Right. Yeah. Hotels too, right? In those places which don't allow certain breeds, those hotels may
Yeah.
have restrictions against the breed. So for, especially though, for people who are camping and for you specifically, because you are going to be planning your trip, my suggestion is to look for state parks, national forests, Army Corps of Engineers campgrounds, anything that's managed on a government level, right? Not the private parks. They seem to have more, we seem to see more discrimination at private parks, and they say it's related to their insurance policies.
Insurance.
I haven't dug into that. I don't know. I don't go there, but I do know state parks, national forests, those kinds of places don't discriminate.
That's
So
awesome.
those are the places I would focus on when you're, specifically for you, when you're planning your trip.
Yeah,
And anybody
absolutely.
who's
And for
traveling
any,
with a discrete breed who
yeah,
suffers discrimination, which Buster did too. Buster, our shepherd, we would run into breed discrimination
yeah.
with Buster.
And it's important, and then I want to move on to something. I don't want to linger here too long,
More
but
fun.
it's important to notice that, it's not necessarily because you have a breed that is an American Pit Bull or a German Shepherd or a Rottweiler or any of those larger breeds that are just misunderstood. If your dog even looks like they might have a little bit of that type of dog in them, you are potentially open up. So it's just really important when you start driving outside of your home base. I know we all feel really comfortable, but you have to do your homework because I don't know what I would do. Like literally, if
Right,
someone took my dogs out of my car, like, you better
right.
call someone because I'm going to have a meltdown, right? I'm going to have a very bad meltdown. So
I
just
hear
doing your
you.
homework is great. And I love that you have that on your website. So I know it's a little bit different for people that are RVing, but for those of us that might want to jump in our car and say, hey, let's just wing it, right? I have a week off from work. Nothing better than to take my best furry friend and to go have an amazing vacation. What should you pack? What are the things that are essential that you make certain you bring and that you do not forget, because you'll be upset on the other
You'll be
side?
sorry, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
you'll be really sorry, or you'll be buying it along the way. The number one most important thing to bring is your pet's vaccination records, especially if you're going to be crossing a border. You're going to be potentially in daycare, using a daycare facility. Even some campgrounds want to see the vaccination records
And that's the
before,
rabies
when you check in.
vaccination. Yes.
Rabies vaccination, definitely rabies. And then it depends on what kind of a facility you'd be looking at. If you were going to do like a daycare type of thing while you went to a museum, for example,
Right.
then they would have probably some other requirements
Yeah.
as well. But that's the number one thing, to absolutely pack their vaccination records. The other thing that probably people might not think of, to pack dog food, and to pack the bowls, and to pack like his bed, and to pack some toys and some chews, and things like that that are going to keep them entertained. But one of the things that I have found, kind of through difficult learning, I always tend to learn things the hard way, was not having their whole vet records. So we were on the road on a 3.5 week trip. Buster got an eye infection. We had to take him to a vet. They wanted to know when he was last vaccinated for this and when he was last vaccinated for that, and what kind of medication was he on and what sort of dosage, and when was he last had his last heartworm test. And like, I was like, I don't know these things off the top of my head. It was a Saturday. His vet was closed. And they're like, well, we could start vaccinating him again for all these things. And I'm like, no, I don't think that's a good plan.
No.
So what I did then when I got back from that trip was I took all of their 2 dogs' medical records and I scanned them to a USB drive.
Very
And I
smart.
just put it right in their travel bag. So whenever because also in an emergency, so this was just an eye infection, but if one of the dogs had been injured, I would not be in the right frame of mind to recall this type. I probably couldn't remember the name of their vet in that situation. So having all the information on a USB drive so that I could just hand it to somebody and say, everything you need is on here. I'm going to attend to the dog. Here's all the information that you should need.
Yeah.
Just makes life a little bit easier.
Yeah. I think that's a great
Yeah.
idea. I think,
In that situation.
yeah, I also talk about, we did an interview, or I did an interview with a certified pet first aid and CPR instructor. So I'm always
Oh
thinking
yeah.
bringing a portable first aid kit that's geared towards your canine.
Oh yeah.
Have a photo, have like a recent photo, and not just one on your phone. Like if you can actually print one out, just print one out and have it on you. And I know a lot of people think about this, always bring doggy poop bags. Besides picking up poop, God forbid your dog gets sick in your car, it can actually be a really quick way to clean things up. It really, like, just think multifunction here, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of people think I'm going to get
Amazing.
food and I can get their food along the way. Either call stores on your route to make certain they carry the right food or the right brand, or bring extra food,
Yeah.
because the last thing you ever want to do is have your dog go into GI distress because you're 6 states away and you're suddenly out of food and you didn't think that you weren't going to be able to get it. And now you're dealing with a different health issue, right? That your dog is potentially having diarrhea and whatnot. So,
That's right. The other thing is too, along the lines of food and medication too, always pack a couple of extra days worth, right? Don't just pack for, if you're going to be gone for 5 days, pack enough food and medication for 7. Because if you get hung up someplace, the last thing that you want is, again, having to go shopping for dog food or having to get to a vet to get your dog's try to get a prescription refill or something like that. So always take a couple of extra days with
yeah.
you.
That's brilliant. So I'm going to just kind of put you on the spot. So I apologize in advance. But if there was one tip or trick that you have kind of learned from RVing over the last, 20 years, that you would impart the wisdom on all of us, what would it be?
I think that the thing that probably the mistake that most people make, right? That I think that I've learned after learning it myself and then watching so many other people is we try to plan too much. So when you're traveling with your pet, you have a built-in routine with them. They get their walk in the morning, they have their breakfast. As much as possible, if you can stick to that routine when you're traveling, that helps with their anxiety. Right? It helps reduce any anxiety that they're feeling because they still, yes, they're in a different place, but they still have a bit of their routine in place. And the exercise is important if you're going to be driving all day, kinds of things, just to help them burn off a little bit of energy on a regular basis on their same routine. But I think what people do is they're like, oh yeah, I'm going on a road trip, but we're going to do this, and then we're going to do that, and then we're going to do the next thing.
Yeah.
And then you start running behind a little bit, right? You got to take the dog for a walk, or he wants to sniff the bushes here because it's extra smelly and it's a place he's never been before. So he wants to hang out there. And you're like, come on, we're scheduled for a tour in 15 minutes. And he's like, you know what? These bushes are so wonderful. You really should get in here and smell these bushes, right? So when you set it up that you have so much going on that you can't allow your pet to do the things that they love, you're both going to be frustrated.
Yeah. Well, they are creatures of habit. So I think that's a great idea.
That's exactly right. And just keeping, you don't go on vacation so that you can be stressed out and like try to, do all the things. you want to go and enjoy yourselves. And sometimes that means just slowing down and
Yeah.
taking it easy and not getting, stressed out about what you're able to do or not do.
And a general rule of thumb that I learned just from taking my boy Diego when I went down to Florida, because I'm on the East Coast. So it was like a 2-day trip. Was every time I gas up, every time I put fuel in my car, he goes out for a potty break, stretches the legs. I think that's something that we kind of, again, because our dogs can sleep for 8 hours on end, we think they can stay in a car for 8 hours, and it's just get their muscles moving. You don't really want them to,
Yeah.
yeah.
Get them a
So
little drink of water. It's also good for us, right, to get out and walk around for a few minutes. When we're traveling with Miles, um, the RV holds a lot more fuel, so we don't have to stop every couple of hours to fill up. So, but we do stop every couple of hours and get out and walk around. Also, it's really important that people buckle up their pets in the car, right? They either have a seatbelt harness or they have a secured carrier. So allowing them to get up and move around. Miles is only like 16 months old, so he still has a lot of puppy energy. He needs to get up and move around a little bit after a couple of hours, or he's going to get not happy.
yeah.
Which when Miles is not happy, then nobody's happy.
So
So
when you're in the RV, he's
it's important.
secured. He's not like just walking around.
Absolutely. No,
Ah,
no.
okay.
He's absolutely secure. So he has a seatbelt harness, and in our sofa there are lap seat belts built into the RV, and so he's in his seatbelt harness with the lap belt through. So that, yeah, he's definitely not hopping around. That's something I guess it's become such a habit for me. I don't think about it, but this is a 30,000-pound vehicle that
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
driving down the road.
Right.
There's a certain amount of responsibility that you have to everybody else on the road
Right.
when you're driving, and even in a car, right? There's a certain amount of responsibility that we have. And I think that it's important that we have our pets buckled up so that they're not distracting us.
Well, and for those who think my pet will never distract me, if you take a corner too sharp, your dog is going from one side to the other because they're not able to see that there's a corner coming. So you potentially could also injure your dog. So I think it's really wise to just remind everyone that a dog should always be safe, right? Safety first. That's really what we are all about our labs. And I
Right.
know it's what we have to always be about with our pets, because we are we're their keepers, right?
That's right. We're in charge. We wouldn't put our kids in the car without buckling them up. And so the same should apply to our pets.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So Amy, I really appreciate you coming. I know I've learned a lot and I'm super excited. I'm also a little bit nervous, but like in a really good way. Because I'm kind of like a perfectionist, so I don't ever want to do anything wrong. So no, I gotta go look at your website more. But for everyone watching us, Amy Burkert, thank you so much. It's gopetfriendly.com, gopetfriendly.com. Go read some blogs, and thank you so much for coming and sharing all of your infinite wisdom with us.
It's been wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.